The war chamber of the Zorn Collective pulsed with a rhythm of anticipation, its biomechanical walls shifting like living muscle. Holographic displays flickered with stellar cartographies, each projection a testament to the species' decades-long campaign of galactic conquest. Commander Krelax stood at the center, his exoskeleton gleaming with battle honors. Each iridescent plate a memory of worlds subjugated, civilizations crushed. New Cascadia, he announced, his vocoder translating his native clicking language into a cold, mechanical tone that echoed through the chamber. Our next conquest. The hologram materialized, a desolate planet on the furthest rim of human-controlled space. Kepler 442b. A world so marginal that most galactic powers considered it barely habitable. Atmospheric readings showed a harsh environment of constant windstorms, minimal vegetation and temperature variations that would challenge even the most adaptable species. The human colony appeared to be nothing more than a desperate experiment in planetary colonization. Senior tactician Vrelnax, Krelax's primary advisor, approached the holographic display. Her sensory tendrils extended, analyzing the data with practiced precision. Minimal population, she observed. Approximately 12,000 colonists, predominantly scientific and terraforming personnel. No significant military infrastructure detected. The assembled Zorn commanders chittered with anticipation. To them, this was less a military operation and more a routine extermination. A cleanup mission that would barely register as a footnote in their ongoing campaign of galactic domination. Krelax's personal history made him particularly suited for this mission. He was legendary among the Zorn for turning planetary invasions into swift, brutal performances of military might. His record included the complete subjugation of the Orion Confederation, a civilization that had resisted multiple invasion attempts by other species. Where others saw challenging terrain or resilient defenders, Krelax saw only opportunities for conquest. Intelligence reports confirm our initial assessment, Vrelnax continued, manipulating the hologram to zoom in on specific colony sectors. Terraforming equipment appears rudimentary, communication infrastructure is minimal, their defensive capabilities are practically non-existent. What the Zorn didn't know, what they couldn't possibly understand, was that every single piece of data they were analyzing had been carefully crafted. Each transmission intercepted, every scan performed, was precisely what the humans of New Cascadia wanted them to see. Deep within the colony's most secure facility, a team of humans watched the Zorn's preparations with calculated patience. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the colony's chief strategic architect, reviewed multiple holographic displays showing the Zorn's communications, fleet movements, and tactical deliberations. They're taking the bait, she muttered to her second-in-command Marcus Chen, a brilliant software engineer with a background in adaptive combat systems. Marcus studied the displays, his fingers dancing across haptic interfaces. Perfectly predictable, he responded. The Zorn operate on a mathematical model of conquest that hasn't fundamentally changed in 3 centuries. They see weakness, and they attack. Always the same approach. The facility around them was a marvel of misdirection. What appeared to be a simple research station was actually the most sophisticated defensive coordination center humanity had ever constructed. Every system was redundant. Every potential failure point had been anticipated and prepared for. Back in the Zorn war chamber, Krelax was finalizing invasion protocols. His reputation demanded nothing less than a swift, overwhelming victory. The Zorn Collective had conquered civilizations that had taken centuries to develop interstellar travel. A small human colony on a marginal planet would be little more than a momentary distraction. Invasion window, Krelax announced, will commence in 3 standard galactic cycles. Prepare the biomechanical assault fleet. The chamber erupted in a chorus of clicking affirmations. Weapon systems powered up. Assault ships began their preliminary launch sequences. To the Zorn, this was routine. Another world. Another conquest. What they didn't realize was that they were walking into a trap millennia in the making. A trap designed not just by the current generation of colonists, but by the entire strategic vision of human expansion into the galaxy. New Cascadia was many things. Weak was not one of them. As the Zorn fleet prepared for what they believed would be an effortless invasion, the true nature of human innovation was about to be revealed. In 7 devastating minutes that would rewrite the understanding of planetary defense forever. The first wave of Zorn dropships punched through New Cascadia's atmosphere like razor-tipped spears of living metal. Biomechanical hulls gleamed with an iridescent sheen, their surfaces rippling with adaptive camouflage and weapon systems that had crushed a dozen civilizations. Commander Krelax watched from his command vessel, the massive ship's neural interfaces, feeding him a constant stream of tactical data. "Initial landing zones confirmed," reported Sub-Commander Zarnek, his voice a mechanical chirp that translated the Zorn's complex communication patterns. "No significant resistance detected. Preliminary. Scans show minimal defensive infrastructure." What the Zorn saw was exactly what the humans of New Cascadia wanted them to see. At the colony's primary settlement, the first dropships crashed through layers of artificially weakened atmospheric barriers. Shock troops poured out in perfect synchronization, each warrior a living weapon, their exoskeletons bristling with technologies that had subjugated entire star systems. Plasma cannons charged, molecular disruptors hummed with potential energy, and advanced targeting systems locked onto seemingly defenseless structures. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the colony's central command hub, a facility that appeared to be nothing more than a standard scientific research center. Her fingers moved with surgical precision across holographic interfaces that looked rudimentary, but concealed layers of complexity beyond the Zorn's comprehension. "Invasion timeline is tracking perfectly," she muttered to Marcus Chen, who stood beside her monitoring a series of seemingly innocuous data streams. "They're moving exactly as our predictive models suggested." Marcus nodded, a thin smile crossing his face. "Textbook invasion pattern, exactly like the simulation." The first Zorn troops touched down in what appeared to be the colony's primary settlement zone. Wide streets lined with prefabricated research buildings stretched out before them. Automated maintenance drones moved in predictable patterns. Everything looked exactly like the intelligence reports had suggested. A vulnerable, poorly defended human outpost. Commander Krelax's primary tactical display showed a near-perfect invasion scenario. No defensive weapon systems, no concentrated military presence, just a handful of scientific personnel and minimal infrastructure. "Commence primary pacification protocol," Krelax commanded, his voice reverberating through the ship's neural communication network. On the ground, Zorn shock troops began their standard subjugation sequence. They moved in tight formation, molecular disruptors charged and ready to neutralize any potential resistance. Advanced scanning systems swept the area, looking for communication nodes, power centers, and potential defensive installations. They found nothing, or so they thought. What the Zorn didn't realize was that every single element of the colony was preparing. The maintenance drones weren't simple automated systems. They were the first layer of a distributed combat network. The seemingly random placement of research facilities was actually a carefully designed defensive matrix. Elena's fingers danced across her interface. "Outer perimeter sensors are registering full Zorn troop deployment," she reported, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was about to unfold. "Estimated time to full exposure, 2 minutes, 17 seconds. Marcus checked a secondary display. "Geological preparation is at 92% synchronization. Nanite terraforming networks are primed and ready." In the Zorn command ship, Sub-Commander Zarnek began to notice something unusual. Micro-fluctuations in the planetary scanning systems, momentary disruptions in their communication networks. Nothing significant, yet, but enough to trigger a slight increase in tactical alert levels. "Commander," Zarnek reported, "we're detecting minor anomalies in..." His report was cut short. The first signs of the trap began to manifest. Subtle at first. A maintenance drone here suddenly moving with impossible precision. A seemingly random geological shift there. The prefabricated research building started to show signs of movement, almost imperceptible but definitely present. Commander Krell-Ax leaned forward, mandibles clicking with a hint of uncertainty for the first time in his long military career. Something was different about this invasion. Something was very wrong. "Activate full combat protocols," he commanded, a note of caution entering his usually confident voice. On the ground, the first Zorn troops were about to learn that New Cascadia was nothing like the intelligence reports had suggested. What appeared to be humanity's weakest colony was about to become the most terrifying battleground in galactic history. The invasion had begun, and nothing, absolutely nothing, was going according to the Zorn's plan. The transformation began with a whisper, a nearly imperceptible shift in the planet's fundamental structure. What the Zorn believed was a simple colonization site revealed itself as the most elaborate defensive system ever conceived by any species. In known galactic history, Dr. Elena Rodriguez activated Protocol Mirage with a series of coded neural impulses that rippled through New Cascadia's entire infrastructure. Her neural link interface, disguised as a simple research communication device, was actually a master control system that turned the entire planet into a living, breathing weapon. "Adaptive matrix engaging," she murmured, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was about to unfold. The first signs of transformation were subtle. A maintenance drone near the colony's primary research hub suddenly moved with impossible precision. Its standard agricultural scanning array reconfigured, molecular structures shifting at a quantum level. What moments ago had been a simple environmental monitoring device was now a precision targeting system. Marcus Chen watched the transformation with a scientist's analytical eye and a strategist's appreciation. "Neural adaptive matrix is at 73% synchronization," he reported, fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that looked like standard research equipment, but were actually the most advanced combat coordination systems ever developed. The Zorn. Troops began to notice something was wrong. Their molecular scanners started producing impossible readings. The terrain itself seemed to be changing. What appeared to be simple rocky outcroppings began to shift, not dramatically, but with a precision that defied natural geological processes. Mineral compositions altered. Electromagnetic signatures fluctuated. Subcommander Zarnek's communication array erupted with conflicting data streams. "Commander," he called to Krell-Ax, "we're detecting massive structural anomalies in the planetary surface. Scanning systems are experiencing interference." Interference was an understatement. Every piece of equipment the colonists had brought to New Cascadia was part of an integrated combat system. Terraforming lasers that had been used to modify the planet's ecosystem, now recalibrated into advanced targeting mechanisms. Agricultural drones transformed into distributed weapon platforms. Mining equipment converted into mobile artillery units. The colony wasn't just prepared for invasion. It was designed to be a weapon. Elena Rodriguez understood something fundamental about human expansion that the Zorn could never comprehend. A colony wasn't just a settlement. It was a statement of human potential. Each outpost a seed of possibility, engineered to survive and thrive in the most challenging environments imaginable. Nanite terraforming network is now at full combat synchronization, Marcus reported. The casual way he spoke belied the revolutionary nature of what was happening. This wasn't just a defense. It was a complete reimagining of planetary warfare. The Zorn's first wave of troops found themselves trapped in a landscape that was literally changing around them. Geological systems modified at a molecular level. Atmospheric processors became localized electromagnetic disruption generators. What seemed like simple climate control equipment was now capable of creating micro-tsunamis, targeted seismic events, and precision atmospheric manipulations. Commander Krell-Ax watched in growing horror as his invasion force began to disintegrate. His tactical displays showed impossible scenarios, entire platoons vanishing into ground that liquefied and then re-solidified in milliseconds. Advanced battle armor turning into useless scrap metal as molecular structures were manipulated beyond their design parameters. "This is impossible," Zarnak muttered, a rare moment of fear creeping into his usually clinical communication. But it was happening. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology. It was adaptability, the ability to turn limitation into opportunity, to see a harsh, unforgiving planet not as a challenge to be overcome, but as a potential weapon to be wielded. Each colonist was more than just a person. They were a node in a living, breathing combat network. Every system was redundant. Every potential failure point had been anticipated and prepared for. The entire colony was one massive distributed intelligence, a single organism with multiple components all working in perfect, terrifying synchronization. The transformation continued. What had taken years of careful planning was now executing with mathematical precision. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. Instead, they had triggered the most sophisticated defensive system in galactic history. New Cascadia was changing, and the Zorn were about to learn the true meaning of human innovation. The first true manifestation of New Cascadia's defensive capabilities struck with geological precision that defied conventional understanding of planetary manipulation. Zorn. Shock troops found themselves sinking into ground that behaved like liquid one moment and solid granite the next. Commander Krelix watched in mounting horror as his tactical displays showed entire platoons disappearing into terrain that seemed to have a terrifying sentience of its own. Dr. Elena Rodriguez controlled this symphony of geological destruction. From the colony's central hub, her neural interfaces dancing across holographic displays that looked like complex scientific research tools. Each movement of her fingers triggered cascading planetary responses that would have been considered impossible by any known scientific standard. Nanite Terraforming Network is now operating at quantum adaptive resonance, Marcus Chen reported, his voice a mix of scientific detachment and barely contained excitement. Geological manipulation is tracking at 98.7% synchronization. The planet itself had become a weapon. What the Zorn didn't understand, what they could never comprehend, was that New Cascadia wasn't just a colony. It was a decades-long experiment in planetary defense disguised as a marginal scientific outpost. Every piece of terraforming equipment, every geological scanning device, every seemingly innocuous research instrument was actually a component of the most sophisticated defensive system ever conceived. The first targeted geological event began near the primary Zorn landing zone. The ground didn't just shift, it transformed. Molecular structures realigned with mathematical precision. What appeared to be solid rock liquefied, then instantaneously re-solidified, trapping entire squads of Zorn shock troops. Advanced battle armor became nothing more than decorative shells as the planet itself became a living weapon. Sub-Commander Zarnek's communication systems erupted with panicked transmission fragments. "We're losing ground units. The terrain, it's impossible." Electromagnetic pulses born from what the Zorn believed were simple terraforming equipment began to systematically disable their most advanced technologies. Communication arrays went dark. Weapon systems failed. Entire dropships found themselves caught in localized gravitational anomalies that shouldn't have been possible. "Gravitational manipulation matrices are now at full deployment," Marcus reported, a hint of professional pride in his voice. "Targeted seismic response is tracking optimal defensive parameters." Commander Krelax had conquered worlds. He had subjugated civilizations that had taken centuries to develop interstellar travel. But nothing in his extensive military history had prepared him for this. The planet was fighting back. Each geological manipulation was a carefully choreographed dance of quantum-level engineering. Nanite systems integrated with the planet's fundamental geological structures, creating defensive mechanisms that were part technology, part living ecosystem. What seemed like random geological shifts were actually precisely calculated defensive responses. A Zorn heavy assault unit found itself trapped in a section of ground that behaved like quicksand one moment, then instantaneously transformed into razor-sharp crystalline structures the next. Their molecular disruption weapons, capable of reducing most defensive structures to atomic dust, were utterly ineffective against a planetary defense system that could change its fundamental molecular structure faster than the weapons could target it. Adaptive resonance at peak efficiency, Elena muttered, her neural interfaces showing complex mathematical models that represented entire planetary defensive strategies. Geological manipulation tracking optimal defensive parameters. The scientific outpost that the Zorn had believed to be humanity's weakest colony was revealing itself to be something far more terrifying. This wasn't just a defense, it was a complete reimagining of planetary warfare. Entire sections of the planetary surface began to move with impossible coordination. What appeared to be simple rock formations transformed into defensive barriers. Micro-tsunamis generated from seemingly random geological shifts began to systematically disrupt Zorn landing zones. Atmospheric processors became localized electromagnetic disruption generators. Sub-Commander Zarnek's final transmission was a mix of terror and incomprehension. The planet is fighting back. And indeed it was. New Cascadia was no longer just a colony. It was a living weapon, designed by humanity's most innovative minds to turn planetary limitations into the most sophisticated defensive system in galactic history. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. Instead, they had triggered a planetary defense mechanism beyond their most terrifying nightmares. Humanity's most potent weapon was never its technology. It was adaptability, a concept so fundamental yet so alien to the rigid computational models of the Zorn Collective that it would ultimately become their undoing. Marcus Chen embodied this principle perfectly. His fingers moved across adaptive interfaces that looked like standard research equipment, but were actually the most sophisticated combat coordination systems ever conceived. Each neural impulse was a complex algorithm, transforming the entire colony into a living, breathing combat network. Distributed Intelligence Network is now at full synchronization, he reported to Elena Rodriguez, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what was unfolding. The colony wasn't just defending itself, it was learning, adapting, predicting the Zorn's every possible move with mathematical precision. On a secondary display, a complex holographic model showed multiple potential invasion scenarios. Each potential Zorn movement was not just predicted but preemptively countered. Where most defensive systems would react, this system anticipated. The young colonists who had been recruited for this mission were unlike any military force in human history. Each was a node in a massive, distributed intelligence network. Their backgrounds were deliberately diverse: software engineers, planetary scientists, terraforming specialists, quantum computing experts. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were living algorithms. Elena watched the invasion unfold with a scientist's analytical precision. Predictive modeling is showing 99.7% accuracy in Zorn movement patterns, she muttered. They're operating on a tactical model that hasn't fundamentally changed in 3 centuries, and that was their fatal weakness. The Zorn Collective had conquered dozens of civilizations by relying on a computational approach to warfare that was brilliant, but ultimately rigid. They analyzed, they calculated, they attacked with mathematical precision, but they could never truly adapt. Humanity was different. Marcus triggered a series of adaptive responses that would have been considered impossible by any conventional military standard. Agricultural drones that moments ago had been monitoring crop growth now transformed into precision strike platforms. Mining lasers recalibrated into advanced targeting systems. Every piece of equipment was a potential weapon, every colonist a potential combat node. A young colonist named Sarah, originally a quantum computing researcher, began manipulating planetary systems like a virtuoso musician. Her neural interfaces allowed her to redirect atmospheric pressures, trigger localized micro-tsunamis, and burn invasion routes using weaponized solar reflectors. To her, this was less a battle and more a complex mathematical solution. Commander Krelax's tactical systems began to show impossible scenarios. Entire invasion routes would suddenly become impassable. Communication networks collapsed. Weapon systems found themselves targeting phantom positions that existed only milliseconds before. The Zorn's computational approach was being used against them. Every piece of data they had collected about New Cascadia, every scan, every intercepted Transmission had been carefully crafted. The humans hadn't just prepared a defense. They had created an elaborate trap that used the Zorn's own predictive models against them. Adaptive Response Matrix is now tracking at quantum synchronization, Marcus reported. The phrase sounded clinical, but it represented a revolutionary approach to planetary defense that would rewrite military doctrine across known space. The colony's defensive network wasn't just responding to the invasion, it was predicting it, analyzing it, learning from it in real time. Quantum computing systems integrated with planetary terraforming equipment created defensive mechanisms that were part technology, part living ecosystem. Nanite networks moved, with an intelligence that blurred the line between biological and technological systems. Sub-Commander Zarnek's communication systems began to show the first true signs of panic. Their most advanced computational models were being systematically dismantled by a defensive system that seemed to think faster than their own neural networks. "They're not just defending," Zarnek muttered in horror. "They're solving the invasion like a mathematical problem." And that was exactly what was happening. Each colonist was a variable in a complex living algorithm. The entire planet was the computational space. And the Zorn were nothing more than a predictable variable to be solved, manipulated, and ultimately eliminated. Humanity's true strength had always been its ability to transform limitation into opportunity. To see a harsh, unforgiving planet not as a challenge to be overcome, but as a potential weapon to be wielded. The invasion was no longer just a battle. It was a mathematical proof of human potential. Time became a weapon. 7 minutes. That was all it took for New Cascadia to transform from humanity's most seemingly vulnerable colony to the most terrifying defensive position in galactic history. Commander Krelax would later testify, in the rare moments before his complete psychological breakdown, that those 7 minutes were an eternity of impossible horror. The colony's defensive system operated with a precision that defied conventional understanding of warfare, planetary defense, or even the fundamental laws of physics as the Zorn understood them. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the storm, her neural interfaces painting a holographic landscape of absolute tactical dominance. Each movement of her hands was a surgical strike against the Zorn's invasion force. Entire platoons disappeared. Invasion routes collapsed. Communication networks disintegrated. Tactical synchronization at 99.8%. Marcus Chen reported, his voice a calm counterpoint to the absolute chaos unfolding across the planetary surface. Zorn invasion force is now experiencing complete systemic failure. The first minute saw the complete disruption of Zorn landing zones. Geological systems manipulated at a quantum level turned solid ground into liquefied traps. Entire dropships found themselves caught in localized gravitational anomalies that crushed them like insects. What should have been an overwhelming invasion became a systematic elimination. Sub-Commander Zarnek's communication systems erupted with fragments of panicked transmissions. Entire squadrons reported impossible scenarios, weapon systems failing, communication networks collapsing, entire units vanishing into terrain that seemed to have a terrifying sentience of its own. By the second minute, the Zorn's advanced battle armor had become nothing more than decorative shells. Nanite systems integrated with the planet's fundamental structures created defensive mechanisms that dismantled the most advanced technological systems like they were children's toys. Adaptive Response network is now operating at quantum resonance, Marcus muttered, watching as entire invasion routes were systematically eliminated. Each movement was a complex mathematical solution, each defensive response a living algorithm that anticipated and neutralized threats before they could fully manifest. The third minute saw the true horror of human innovation revealed. Agricultural. Drones transformed into precision strike platforms. Mining lasers recalibrated into advanced targeting systems. Every piece of equipment became a weapon. Every colonist became a combat node in a distributed intelligence network that moved with a terrifying mathematical precision. Atmospheric processors became localized electromagnetic disruption generators. Terraforming equipment turned into advanced defensive systems that could manipulate planetary structures at a molecular level. The entire colony was a single living weapon, each component working in perfect, terrifying synchronization. Commander. Kralax watched in growing terror as his invasion force disintegrated. His most advanced tactical system showed impossible scenarios. Entire platoons vanishing into ground that liquefied and then re-solidified in milliseconds. Weapon systems targeting phantom positions that existed only momentarily. The fourth minute was pure psychological warfare. The Zorn discovered that every single piece of data they had collected about New Cascadia had been carefully crafted. This wasn't just a defense. It was an elaborate trap that used the Zorn's own predictive models against them. They're not just defending, Zarnek muttered in horror. They're solving the invasion like a mathematical problem. By the fifth minute, the Zorn invasion force had been reduced to scattered, panicked survivors. Their most advanced computational models were being systematically dismantled by a defensive system that seemed to think faster than their own neural networks. The sixth minute saw the complete collapse of Zorn morale. Communication networks showed nothing but fragments. Terrified transmissions of units reporting impossible scenarios. Entire squadrons reporting that the planet itself was attacking them. That the very ground beneath their feet had become a living weapon. In the final minute, New Cascadia delivered its final devastating message. Every transmission intercepted by the Zorn was carefully crafted. Every scan performed was precisely what the humans wanted them to see. The colony wasn't just defending itself. It was demonstrating humanity's true potential for innovation, adaptability, and strategic thinking. 7 minutes. That was all it took to transform humanity's most vulnerable colony into the most terrifying, defensive position in galactic history. The invasion was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. The final transmission would become legendary, a moment that would be studied by military strategists, xenopolitical analysts, and historians across known space for generations to come. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the colony's central communication hub, her neural interfaces still humming with the residual energy of the most devastating planetary defense in galactic history. Around her, the colonists who had just repelled the most advanced invasion force ever conceived, moved with a calm that would have terrified the Zorn even more than their 7-minute defeat. "Prepare the final broadcast," she commanded. Marcus. Chen began routing the transmission through every known Zorn communication frequency. What was about to be sent wasn't just a message, it was a statement, a declaration of humanity's true nature that would reshape interstellar relations forever. The broadcast began with pure, raw data, a comprehensive breakdown of every single, tactical decision the Zorn had made. Each intercepted transmission, every scan, every strategic movement, displayed with such mathematical precision that it would become clear the humans had known exactly what the Zorn would do before the invasion even began. To the Zorn Collective, the transmission began, Elena's voice calm and clinical. You came, seeking what you believed was humanity's weakest point. Instead, you found our true nature. The message was a masterpiece of psychological warfare. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a boast. It was a clinical, almost academic dismantling of the Zorn's entire invasion strategy. Each frame of the transmission showed impossible levels of preparation. Geological manipulation systems that could transform an entire planetary surface in milliseconds. Distributed intelligence networks that turned every piece of colonial equipment into a potential weapon. Mathematical models that predicted and neutralized threats before they could fully manifest. Marcus overlaid the transmission with real-time data from the invasion. Entire invasion routes reduced to mathematical probabilities. Tactical decisions shown to be fundamentally flawed. The Zorn's most advanced computational systems revealed as laughably primitive. You operated on a tactical model unchanged for 3 centuries, Elena continued. We saw your invasion before you even conceived it. The psychological impact was devastating. Across Zorn communication networks, the transmission spread like a virus. Military commanders watched in horror as their most classified strategic decisions were laid bare. Every assumption, every tactical approach was systematically dismantled. Commander Krelax, still aboard his damaged command ship, watched the transmission with a growing sense of existential terror. This was more than a defeat. This was a complete deconstruction of everything the Zorn Collective believed about warfare, intelligence, and technological superiority. The transmission revealed the true nature of human innovation. New Cascadia wasn't just a colony. It was a living laboratory of human potential. Every piece of equipment, every colonist was part of a distributed intelligence network that could adapt, learn, and neutralize threats with mathematical precision. You saw weakness, Elena's voice continued. We saw an opportunity to redefine the fundamental understanding of planetary defense. Each frame of the transmission was a quantum-level demonstration of human capabilities. Terraforming equipment that could manipulate planetary structures at a molecular level. Adaptive networks that could transform entire ecosystems into defensive systems. A level of technological integration that blurred the line between biological and technological systems. Sub-Commander Zarnak, watching from a damaged communication relay, felt something unprecedented in Zorn psychology. True, existential fear, the key. Final segment of the transmission was its most devastating element, a comprehensive breakdown of the 7-minute invasion, not as a battle report but as a mathematical proof. Each moment of the defense was shown as a complex algorithmic solution. The entire planetary defense was revealed as a living, adaptive system that had solved the invasion like a complex mathematical problem. This is humanity. Elena's final words rang across Zorn communication networks. Not as you expected, not as you understood, but exactly as we choose to be. The transmission ended, but its impact was just beginning. Across Zorn-controlled space, military strategists, political leaders, and computational experts would spend years, decades, trying to understand what had happened on New Cascadia. The transmission became more than a record of defeat. It became a warning. Humanity was not what they had believed, and the galaxy would never be the same. The destruction of the Zorn invasion force was more than a single battle. It was a fundamental recalibration of galactic power dynamics. In the IDOR, weeks following the 7-minute defense of New Cascadia, every known spacefaring civilization began to reassess their understanding of humanity. Diplomatic channels, intelligence networks, and strategic planning centers across multiple star systems worked to comprehend what had happened on that marginal colony. United Earth Central Command received transmissions from dozens of alien diplomatic corps. Some were openly terrified. Others were cautiously curious. A few were calculating the potential strategic implications. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Marcus Chen found themselves at the center of a storm of interstellar attention. They were summoned to Earth's primary diplomatic center, a massive orbital station that served as the hub of human extraterrestrial relations. The Proxima Collective wants a full technical briefing, a senior diplomatic advisor informed them, her holographic projection flickering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The Arcturan Confederacy is requesting detailed information about our planetary defense systems. The Centauri Cooperative is demanding a full explanation. Marcus chuckled, a rare moment of levity. Demanding? As if we're obligated to explain anything. The data from New Cascadia became a pivotal moment in human expansion. Star charts were redrawn. Military strategies were completely rewritten. Every civilization that had previously viewed humanity as a young, inexperienced species now saw something entirely different. Intercepted alien communications revealed a growing terror that went beyond traditional military concerns. Humanity was no longer seen as a potentially conquerable civilization. It was now viewed as an unpredictable force of technological and strategic innovation. The Zorn Collective suffered complete institutional collapse in the aftermath of the New Cascadia incident. Their entire military computational doctrine had been systematically dismantled. What had been a centuries-old approach to galactic conquest was reduced to a cautionary tale. Commander Krelax, once the most celebrated military leader in Zorn history, was brought before a special tribunal. His psychological evaluation became a matter of galactic study, a living example of what happens when a civilization's fundamental understanding of warfare, is completely obliterated. They knew, Krellex repeatedly muttered during his psychological assessment. They knew everything before we even arrived. The technological innovations revealed by the new Cascadia defense became a watershed moment in galactic technological development. Quantum adaptive networks, planetary-scale defensive systems, distributed intelligence platforms that could transform entire ecosystems into living weapon systems. Most critically, the incident revealed something fundamental about human expansion that no other civilization had previously understood. A human colony was never just a colony, it was a seed of possibility. Every outpost, every marginal planetary settlement was a potential fortress, a living laboratory of innovation, a statement of human potential that could transform limitation into unprecedented opportunity. The scientific community was equally fascinated. The quantum-level adaptive systems demonstrated on New Cascadia represented a fundamental breakthrough in multiple scientific disciplines. Planetary engineering, distributed computational networks, adaptive technological systems that blurred the line between biological and technological innovation. This changes everything, Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, head of the United Earth Advanced Research Directorate, told a closed session of planetary leaders. We're not just talking about a defensive system, we're talking about a completely new understanding of planetary interaction. Alien intelligence networks spent months, years, trying to understand the new Cascadia defense system. Every transmission was analyzed, every piece of data was scrutinized. But the true nature of human innovation remained maddeningly complex. The Arcturan Confederacy's top strategic analyst summarized it best in a classified report. Humanity does not see limitations. They see opportunities waiting to be transformed. For the colonies on the edge of human-controlled space, the message was clear. They were not vulnerable outposts. They were potential fortresses, living systems of innovation and adaptation. New Cascadia became more than a location. It became a symbol, a warning, a promise, that humanity's true strength was not in its technology, not in its military might, but in its fundamental ability to look at a challenge and see not a problem, but a solution waiting to be discovered. The galaxy had changed, and humanity was just getting started.